Thanks for tuning in to the Football Talk Squadron. I'm Dutch.
And I'm Maul.
And welcome to the NFL episode. We're a little late on this one, week 7. I would say late, but at the same time, unless you wanted to watch a WNBA game for the first half of that Broncos Saints game, you didn't miss much.
Listen, we can talk about that though. Like, were you surprised by that game at all?
I get more surprised by how good Denver's defense is, but not like both quarterbacks were just awful. It was just which one could not turn the ball over.
This is just like another test to like how the season has gone of just like, it's impossible to get reads on teams. And like, I know that the Saints starting 2-0 and looking like Super Bowl contenders, we kind of knew that wasn't going to be a trend that stuck, but like they looked like they were at least coherent. And last night was just like, ugh. It was so hard to watch. And then I brought up the point of just like, is the Bucs defense really that bad? Or is the Broncos defense really that good? Because like everybody thought like, oh, Spencer Rattler's coming in, they're kind of like, not really doing anything. Like the Bucs were going to mop the floor with them. And that was a great game last week with the Saints and the Bucs. Like they put up a fight. Like the score ended up, I think, kind of looking like it wasn't as close as it was, but it was a good game to watch.
Saints were winning for a minute.
Yeah, and then they come out last night and you were just like, oh my goodness, like it was just bad.
Spencer Rattler showed why he lost a job to Caleb Williams
I
last
think,
night.
The only thing that wasn't super surprising was like the Broncos defense looked good. Like we kind of had known that they're good, but I mean, gosh, like every aspect of that game was just, it was like last year's Thursday Night Football. That was like a classic Thursday Night Football of just like, oh my goodness, this looks like a preseason game.
I felt bad because they retired Drew Brees' number that night.
Yeah, he was all hyped up and like trying to keep the energy going, but even he was just like, eesh.
You about to get fired, Dennis Green, or whatever his name is.
We need a hurricane to get people excited around here.
Before we get started, we ain't done this in a while. Trivia. This is good trivia. So, and I do this because we do have a few undefeated teams still in the NFL. So the last undefeated team ever was the only one ever in history, 1972 Dolphins. 12 of the 58 Super Bowl teams were the last undefeated team in the regular season before going on to win the Super Bowl. However, 11 of those 12 came before the year 2000. Who is the lone team past 2000 that was the last unbeaten to win a Super Bowl? Now, if you need a hint, I'll give you a hint, but this hint will eliminate some teams.
I have to say, like, the obvious guess at some point in the run was the Patriots.
It's not the Pats.
Okay, then my second guess would be the Colts.
You don't win. Who'd they beat?
That had to be 05 or 06 when they beat the Bears.
2006. Yeah. They were the lone team.
Yeah.
Great job.
When Hester ran the opening kickoff back and everybody was like, here we go. And
if it wasn't for Rex Grossman.
Oh, yeah, we got Rex Grossman as the quarterback.
Poor Pops. I was hoping he'd be on the episode that way. He would have to live through that again. Well, since 2006, there have been 7 teams that reached the Super Bowl. They didn't win, but reached, being the last undefeated. First is the 07 Patriots, who went undefeated.
Yeah, the helmet catch.
The 09 Colts got beat by the Saints. The 10 Steelers, they got beat by the Packers and Rodgers. 2015 Panthers, when they got beat by Denver. The 18 Rams, when they were just boat racing teams, and then showed up against Belichick and Brady and only scored 3 points. And then what I thought was hilarious was the 22 Eagles because they got all the way there and lost to the Chiefs.
Were they undefeated when they played the Chiefs?
No, they weren't undefeated. I'm saying they were the last
Oh, the last
undefeated
undefeated
team
team.
in
Right.
in the NFL before they, you know, so I say that and you take a look at it. I mean, you're looking at almost 20 years
This might have
since
been prior to 2000. I can't remember, but remember when the Saints, not the Saints, the Titans played the Rams, and it was like the dude reached out at the last. Was that prior to 2000? Were the Titans undefeated that season?
No one. The only team to reach the Super Bowl undefeated was the Dolphins, who won it, and the Pats, who lost.
Who lost? Okay.
Yeah. Every other team, I think the one team that I remember that got really close before 2000 was the Broncos, the year they beat the absolute, breaks off the Falcons. I think they only had like 1 or 2 losses, but they were a powerhouse of a football team. But I only bring that up to just say it's one of these like tongue in cheek things. I think for a lot of different reasons, it comes off the wheels for teams. But in the last 20 years, less than half of those teams have even reached a Super Bowl. Since 06, only one have won since being undefeated, being the last undefeated team. So it looks it goes back to your point. You always talk about like, are they really 5-0? Is this a team that I like really trust? Are they really that good? Or is it they just haven't been found out yet?
Oh yeah, like if you don't think records are circumstantial, like at any given point in the season, like you're fooling yourself. Like that's why this is how like Vegas and like sharp bettors make their money. You know what I mean? Like they give this is like why it's such like a why it'll screw with your mind when you're trying to bet on games though is because you'll look at rankings or you'll see like a 5-0 team playing a 2-3 team and you're like, how is the 2-3 team favored? Like, what does Vegas know? Like it's because Vegas is watching the games and they know like, hey, this 5-0 team is a pretender as opposed to whatever 2-3 team that you might be playing.
Some people would just say they have a script. Got to play that script. Well, first game, since the Broncos and Saints was already over, first game in London, Pats Jags. This is an interesting one because me and you, we talked a few weeks ago about our survivor pool. We made it through the double week, as did everyone else, just about.
Yeah, it's been an absolute bloodbath of a season, and then we're thinking like you usually lose 50% of people in the double week, and it was flawless. Everybody got through unscathed.
Which
I think it was the first time all year, like the favorites of the week. I think they went like 10-3-1 or something like that. Like that naturally is just going to make it good for a survivor pool. But
your game was the closest. You were the one that were on pins and needles picking the Eagles to beat the Browns, and it was just like, God, y'all are just
coming off a bye week at home, and that's the best you could do against basically a JV team. Like, goodness.
Gross.
Which makes me sketchy because I'm pretty sure I picked the Eagles to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, we all had the Eagles going to the NFC Championship game, and hopefully no one watched that episode. But Patriots Jags. Jags are -6. I'll let you explain this because Jacksonville's been over there. Just sort of the logic of why you don't think Jacksonville's going to lose.
I wish I pulled up the stats on it as far as like, I know there's stats out there. We've all seen them as far as like who gets over there first and blah, 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 all that stuff. It's just the Jags are already over there. They played a game last week over there. The Patriots didn't even get there till today. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
I found out today that the Patriots just got there today. Listen, I've done some international travel, and I'll tell you that first day after you fly over the pond for 8-9 hours, like that whole first day you need to just sleep because like your body clock is off, the way you get light and all that stuff. You're just kind of in a funk. And I know these guys are professionals, but like there's a big difference between crossing the ocean in that many time zones than there is going from like Florida to California. Like for whatever reason, it's a big difference. And for them to just show up today, they're not even a good team. Like let's like set that out. Like the Patriots are a bad team to begin with, right? So now you've got them on like the backside of the clock. The Jags have been over there now for 2 full weeks. I just don't see the Jags losing back-to-back games over there. Plus, they typically play pretty well in London.
Except for last week. I mean, they got murdered by the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, but the Bears' defense was great. Like at first, the Jags were playing pretty decent. Like offensively, they were doing okay. Their defense sucks. We know their defense sucks, but like the Patriots aren't a powerhouse offensive team. Like there's nothing I see that the Patriots, even just in a straight up matchup, that the Patriots have like a clear cut edge in any way, right? So now the biggest factor that's going to play is this like time zone, how sleepy are they? Are they well rested kind of thing? And the Jags are going to have that miles above the Patriots.
I can't explain that any better. That's why I got Jags too. My big question is, do I pick them in Survivor Pool? That remains to be unseen. After London, first game, Seattle Falcons. Atlanta right now is -3. So you got Cousins, who came off a 509-yard game. They go play Carolina. Luckily, they don't fall in the trap. Their defense, showed up. Carolina's defense is terrible, which you said it. Seattle's isn't great. Like the Legion of Boom, like everything you think about Seattle, those days are gone.
Seattle's a perfect example of what we were talking about earlier. It's like they started 3-0 and everybody was like, yeah, Seattle's like a good team. And I was like, no, they're not. Like, look at those first 3 games that they played and who they played. Not good teams. I don't have their schedule right out in front of me, but I remember thinking like they're not the 3-0. Like they weren't the same as all the other undefeated teams at the time. And now they've slid and let 3 straight go, and we were kind of seeing like, yeah, this is the Seattle that we expected. Kind of very mediocre, middle of the road.
Versus Denver, at New England, versus Miami, first 3 wins. Then at Detroit, versus the Giants, and then against the Niners.
Which before you're like, oh, well, Miami's a good team. I'm pretty sure that was the first time that Tua was out. So again, it's like, and they look absolutely deplorable without Tua, right? So Seattle was, they were a clear, like they're not the same undefeated as everybody else is. Now they won the games. Like I'm not taking that away from them, but when you're like trying to compare teams, that's what it is. Now, I don't know again if this is just like history telling me like the Falcons are going to find a way to screw this up somehow. Like this is one of those games that the Falcons will drop for some reason. They shouldn't, right? Like all signs point to like they're doing well, but I mean they need to come out and like be engaged. Like they can't take this game lightly because like let's be honest, the last game with Seattle, like they had like 4 touchdowns called back. Like they can score points, and the Falcons just better like keep it together or watch out because this is a game that they could drop for sure.
I think the big reason they can drop it is because Kirk Cousins, I don't know what it is. That dude loves to play in 1-score games. It's just like he's broke even on them or been ahead this year, but it's like at some point when you let a team, especially a pro team, I don't care who it is, like unless it's the Titans or the Panthers, if you let a team hang around and they're within 1 score, it doesn't take much for, just like you said, for DK Metcalf to catch one over the top and he's gone. Like they have talent. So the Falcons, the biggest thing I look to them as is it's one of these ones where I thought that this season was the year that was going to be like, okay, Cousins has an Achilles. Let's see Bijan. Like, let's see what this dude can really do. He's sort of become like the Derrick Henry of the offense, like the forefront. And yet again, I'm just like, last week was the first time he scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
It was, you just sort of sit back and I'm like, eventually you got to find some balance in that offense.
It's one of those where it's like, he's your best player. Like he's obviously the most talented guy on the offense, as far as like pure athletic skill goes. So that they're wrong in the sense that they're not using him as the weapon that he is, but it's really hard to judge them or like say that they're wrong because they are winning games. That being said, to your point, every single game they've had outside of last week against the Panthers has been a one-score game. It was
There you go.
18-10 for the Steelers, a 1-point game for the Eagles, a 5-point game for the Chiefs, a 2-point game to the Saints, and a 6-point game to the Bucks. Like, they're not blowing anybody out of the water. Even the Panthers, it was an 18-point win, but they let the Panthers score 20 points. Like, they're not blowing anybody out of the water. That's what I'm saying. Like, they need to like show up and like play well. It's going to sound like a Booger McFarland quote here, but like they need to score more points than the other team to win the game. You know what I mean? Like,
thanks, Booger.
Yeah, like they need to like come out and pretend that this is like a playoff game and like really stick it to them. Otherwise, like Seattle is one of those teams that could come back and win that one score game. Because like to be honest, the Bucks. Even the Eagles, even the Saints. I mean, like 3 of their 4 wins could have easily, if you've watched all those games, could have easily just gone the other way, and you could be sitting here looking at like a 1-5 Falcons team as opposed to a 4-2 Falcons team.
For sure. Next game up, Titans, Bills. Bills are -8.5. I just go back to this, what my buddy who's a big Bills fan said. Bills love to beat bad teams. They love to lose to good teams. This is one of those games that I just sit back and I go, yeah, I think the Bills have it. Mainly because the Titans, like if the Titans keep the game competitive, it's because of their defense. But the reason the Titans lose is because Will Levis is starting at quarterback.
I think the only thing that's going against the Bills in this game is that they're the most heavily favored on the week. Like that's the only negative I can find for the Bills on this game. Like they have surprised me week in and week out as far as how well they're playing on both sides of the ball, and the Titans I don't think are really bringing anything to the table other than if the Bills sleep on them because they're the most heavily favored, and that's happened so many times this year I can't even count.
100%. Next game. This is the intriguing one just because of the history, which you'll know exactly when I say it. Bengals Browns. And the history is Joe Burrow cannot beat the Browns. He's got 1 win against them. He struggles. And this is sort of like, for me, if he loses this game and it looks bad, I'm like, dude, this Cleveland team is awful. Awful. There is no reason for Cincy to drop this game. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it where in division rivalry games, like sometimes because you play that team so frequently, like coaches, organizations, there's just something about like they get a feel for one another and sometimes they just have your number. Just the way that one team does one thing versus how you like to do things may work against all other 31 teams, but it's like that one team somehow is able to stop you every single time, or at least play you well regardless of whatever your records look like at the time. And this is one of those situations where for whatever reason Burrow just doesn't do well against the Cleveland Browns, again regardless of the situation. I think it's of note that Stefanski said that Chubb is going to be playing. He didn't say how much he's going to be playing, but if anybody knows Nick Chubb, like he's going 100% on every single play. So Jerome Ford is out, I think, or at least highly questionable whether or not he's going to play. So they might have like you're thinking they're going to put Chubb on a snap count at least initially to kind of work him back in. But now that Jerome Ford's out, they still got Devontae Foreman.
Well, they're also down their number 1 receiver because he's now in Buffalo with Amari Cooper.
Yeah, so I mean, like this could just be one of those like games where it's just like nobody's really prepared for Chubb, and he pulls an AP and comes back and is like, "Oh my God, this guy looks better without his ACL," kind of deal.
Question: we're going to get into this because there's some major, like we're getting towards that trade deadline here in a few weeks. You think there's any chance that Cleveland deals Myles Garrett?
I mean, first off, it's Cleveland. So literally nothing is off the table. Like nothing is off the table. That being said, I wouldn't say Myles Garrett like directly. However, I can see them trying some type of big blockbuster name deal. Chubb, Garrett, they kind of already, they've not kind of, they did already lose Cooper. So maybe that takes away a little bit of what I'm going to say, but I could see them trying to do something like this to either throw in Deshaun with the deal or like somehow renegotiate something to give up space so that this Deshaun stuff just stops hurting them as bad as it is.
Well, it only gets worse next year because I think it was just me and Pops last week that were talking about it. Deshaun next season, the year after, has 70 plus million cap hit on. You just sort of sit back and it's like, good luck. He was supposed to be this savior, and he's been nothing but a thorn in Cleveland's side.
Which, speaking of, what did they get back for Cooper? I don't even know the details of the deal.
It's from what I read, it was a 3rd round pick, which is hilarious because when Cleveland initially traded from Dallas for him, they traded a 5th round pick. So it's like yet again, Jerry Jones was getting fleeced again. Like, and Cooper is like, I feel like he's probably the most undervalued number 1 wide receiver in the league right now, and it's because he's not flashy. He doesn't open his mouth. You rarely ever hear from him, but he balls out. Like, if you want someone to catch the football, you throw it his way. Like, for the first time since Cleveland came back as a football team, he was the first back-to-back 1,000-yard receiver in Browns history since they came back. Who was throwing it to him? Deshaun Watson, like a few other guys like Thompson. I forget like the dudes that they had last year that like when Watson went down that were just like, yo, let me just yeet this thing over to Cooper and hopefully he catches it. Like, he's been their whole offense. I think he'll do exceptionally well in Buffalo with Josh Allen. But I look at that offense and I go, dude, I feel bad for Chubb because it's like, here's a dude who's worked his absolute rear end off to like get that knee healthy. And it's just like, for what? Like, Cleveland's terrible. It's like Jim Brown all over again. At least Jim Brown won a championship before there were Super Bowls. But it's like you got this hero of a running back that's just wasting away like Barry Sanders. I feel bad. Next game, Texans, Packers. Green Bay, surprising, -2.5 favorites. And I only say that surprising just because Green Bay hasn't looked awesome this year. I know they're 4-2, but 2 of those wins came with Malik Willis. They haven't been amazing with Love. They're 2-2 with him. Texans, on the other hand, are 5-1. I don't know. I don't know why Green Bay's favorite.
This is one of those where it's like somebody had to be the favorite. I think they give Green Bay the edge at home. That's kind of where I see the points swinging because I'm with you. Like this is a close game. I mean, and 2.5 is, I mean, that's a tight game. That's almost a pick 'em. I'm with you. Like Green Bay hasn't looked, I think, as amazing as everybody was initially making him out to be. Like Jordan Love's the MVP before we started the season. They were going to be the NFC Championship, the champion before the end of the season. I also think though that the Texans have taken a big regression. Now their record is 5-1. They're doing great. They're still a very competitive football team, but they have looked beatable on multiple situations. Like they've regressed from what we thought last year, right? And from the expectations of like, Stroud was this amazing rookie. Their defense was just off the chain. You're expecting them to just grow and keep getting better every year. And if anything, they've maybe taken a little bit of a step back, which is, it feels more significant than it is. Obviously, they're 5-1, but like, I could see this one going either way.
Speaking of either way, Dolphins, Colts. Colts are -3. I sit back and I go, man, y'all really blasting the Colts, but only giving them 3 points against the Dolphins team.
I'll
That
tell you what. Listen, call me crazy, but I think if Flacco was playing and like
be a 7-point game.
I think so. I really do. I think at this point, like, and I'm not saying that Richardson is bad. I just think that like he's just an unknown at this point, right? Like we've gotten less than like a half season worth of film on him, I feel like, because of the injuries. And he showed really good promise last year. Again, I was a Richardson hater at last year, starting last year. And through the first couple games, I was surprised. I was like, well, he's proven me wrong. But then he started playing this year, kind of what I expected him to play like last year. And it's like, okay. Well, then he got hurt again. So now we're kind of in the same boat of just like, I don't know who's showing up. We know the Dolphins suck until Tua comes back. And, that's just, they got nothing at that point. Like,
How many
really,
jet sweeps can you run to
yeah,
Tyreek Hill?
yeah. I mean, like, I don't even know what you do in that situation. So it's really just like, if Anthony Richardson can show up and not turn the ball over, they should be fine.
They should win. Richardson has fallen into the RG3, career track, and I just mean that I think it shows he has talent, but we don't know really where that talent is because my man can never stay on the field. And eventually, I'm sorry, that time runs out. Like, if you can't stay healthy, a team can't build around you.
See, the only thing I would disagree on that is like RG3 was good coming out of college. He balled out at Baylor, won the Heisman. Everybody was like, yo, this guy's legit. And he was doing great things in the NFL.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson, like, nobody was talking about him. The only person who was talking about him was Mel Kiper, right? Like,
yeah,
he was an average quarterback on a subpar Florida team. And then all of a sudden, Mel Kiper's like, this guy's amazing. And everybody just took it at face value. That's why I was not a Anthony Richardson fan last year. Now, again, he's proven better than what I expected. He's got all the attributes as far as like big, strong, good arm, all that stuff. But like quarterback wise, he wasn't a good quarterback in college. Like, I don't know. This is what I talked about last year. Is like, how do you think a subpar quarterback in college is all of a sudden going to come out and be a superstar in the pros? That doesn't ever hardly happen.
That's why I think we were all so hard on Drake May. It was just, I think that's a prime example. Like, here's a guy who all the scouts are like, he has all the talent. And I sit back and you watch him. It's like, I remember they were like a top 25 team. I think they were undefeated or something at UNC. And they went and lost to Virginia, who was terrible. And not just lost, got throttled by him, Mays last year. And it was one of those ones that we all sort of sit back and we're like, I don't know where you see this, like, oh, that was just the team that he was on. That was just like, we're so easy to forgive that stuff.
On the problem with May is like, whether it has anything to do with it, because it really doesn't. It's just like, we've already seen that guy come out twice from the same school right before you, right? And it's like, whether that plays a bias in your mind or not, like, it's hard not to. But like, Trubisky comes out and everybody's like, what? Who's this guy? And like, he has, okay, I mean, you're again clearly talented. He's good enough to play in the NFL, but then like kind of turns into like a dud, and you're like, okay, that's kind of what we thought. We were just surprised he made it at this point. And then like Sam Howell comes out, and you're like, I feel like I've seen this movie before. And he, again, turns out he went to a bad Washington team, but again, it was just like same thing. It's like, why are we talking about this guy like he's fantastic when he could have just been average and everybody would just accepted average? Now again, it's like Drake May, and it's like, all right, they've made too many Jaws movies. Like, stop. Like, I've seen them all. Like, you can only write that book so many times before you're just like, stop it.
Yeah. The only thing I'd sit back is, we all thought it was a bad Washington team, but yet Jaden Daniels is going out and slinging it. Now, I think there's still some bad parts of that team that hurt. His line's not the best. If they had a better offensive line, I think Jaden Daniels plays even better. But it really shows the difference of, like, you got Sam Howell, you have Jaden Daniels. That's like, the difference in those two guys just on the field is crazy.
Perfect example, though, of like what I'm talking about with like RG3 and Anthony Richardson. Like, Jaden Daniels balled out in college. we knew he was good at LSU. He won the Heisman. Like, we knew he was good. He came out and you're just like, yeah, he's doing the exact same thing he's doing in college. Like, guys that are just like okay on, especially on like a North Carolina team, ones that aren't playing like super high level football and like they're not blowing everybody out of the water. Like someone like Lamar, right? Lamar came out of Louisville and like they were average ACC. They weren't like from a team standpoint like a super dominant team, but when you watched him on any given like night, you were just like, oh my god, this guy is amazing to watch. Like, no matter how many times I see Drake May throw a football, like, yes, can he throw a football better than 99% of the population? Yes, I'm not saying that, but like, I don't watch him and go, oh my god, this guy's amazing. I'm like, yeah, he's a perfectly average NFL quarterback. But when they get this hype of like, we got to take this guy to save our franchise, it's like, what game are you watching? Like, that's not the guy.
Yeah. Right. That's all that needs to be said on that matter. Game of the week, in my opinion. I know everyone's going to say it's Chiefs Niners.
No, Lions Vikings, dude.
Yes.
Any NFC North game is now game of the week, dude. That game, I heard the stat today. The point differential of the NFC North is, I mean, out of this world, blowing everybody out of the water. In last place in point differential in the NFC North, I think they said was the Packers at 40. So everybody else is 40 or above. The next closest conference combined, the entire conference points differential is at 20.
Wow.
The Lions are like at 63. The Vikings are, I think, at like 59. The Bears are even at 43 or 42 or something like that. And then the Packers are at 40. So they're all 40 or above in point differential. So they're combined as a conference like 211 or, whatever, do the math on that. Combined 211 in the positive. The next closest conference is 20.
Which a lot of that had to deal with the Lions on Jerry Jones' birthday. Not just beating the brakes off them, but then like lining offensive linemen up at wide receiver, doing like, Statue of Liberty plays, throwing to offensive linemen. Dude, that was just like, it's outside of the Cowboys getting bounced in the playoffs. That's the type of game that made my Sunday. I think I was texting you guys like, dude, nothing makes me happier than just watching the Cowboys just get the brakes beat off of them during a game.
We've been talking about like becoming a fan of a favorite random team just to like be able to go to games and have something to root for. Watching that game, I was just like, we need to become Lions fans. They beat the Cowboys so bad, I wanted to become a fan.
It's true. That now, for anyone listening that wants to jump in with their team, our only like qualifier so far is that team could have. You can't have a Super Bowl to your name as a team because we don't want to be bandwagons. It's really we would just want to travel with the team once a year, go watch them play, on the road, go have fun in whatever city they're in, go play some golf, watch the game on Sunday, fly back Monday. And it's like, do that once a year, go see every stadium. That's a dream right there. I don't really have much else in life. But on the other side is the 5-0 Vikings coming off a bye. They're minus 1.5 favorites. Back to the game. It's a huge, this means, I know everyone's going to sit back and talk about the Vikings. I think it means more to the Lions to win this game because their defense has gotten, in my opinion, sort of worse from last year at the corner position. Now they're going against some pretty good talent in Addison and Jordan Jefferson. Like, I just sort of sit back and it's like, I love the Lions, like grit, determination, everything that Dan Campbell preaches. But when you got Jetta on the other side, this could get ugly for the Lions if they can't come out swinging. Because this is the type of game that the Lions get behind. And it's like they get away from David Montgomery. They get away from Jahmyr Gibbs. They constantly throw. They go 3 and out. And before you know it, they're down 28.
Two variables in this game that are, one is a lot more significant than the other, but are both big variables. One, I don't know what Aaron Jones is going to do because he's been a huge factor in why they've been so good, because Darnold looks amazing throwing the ball to those, around the yard to all those guys. But it's been a lot due to Aaron Jones is really holding up his own running the football. Like, because if they just sell out to try to stop all those wide receivers, Aaron Jones is torching dudes. So I don't know what his status is on the game. That's a big variable. And kind of to the same point, but what I think is an even more significant variable is that Hutch broke his leg. He is hands down, undebatable, the best player on that defense. And he's out. He's done for the season, right? And I mean, if Aaron Jones is playing, right, like having a top defensive lineman is obviously going to help with that. Even if they just start backing up and throwing the ball a bunch, having your best pass rusher is very significant in that part. And without Hutch, dude, I mean, that's such a huge blow to the Lions. So I'm with you. It means more to the Lions than it does to the Vikings. Really, at this point, I think the only thing at stake for the Vikings that may get them is that they're undefeated, and they may have this like added pressure to try to stay undefeated. But like the Lions are feeling some pressure, and like we've got to keep living up to this expectation, and now we got to do it without our best defensive player on arguably our weakest point, which is defense.
This is why I asked earlier, because this game for me, to your point with Hutch, if the Vikings can just sit back and it's like the Lions cannot get pressure, for me, the Lions right now, it's a completely different mantra from anything we saw growing up, which I really do think the Lions are in it to win it. They are like, we are committed to winning a Super Bowl. We want to win a Super Bowl. We're going to do what it takes to win a Super Bowl. I sit back and it's like losing Hutch. The first thing that came to mind was I really feel like this team is like, yo, can we go get somebody? And so it's like, which I love. We did an NFL draft episode just talking about it. It's like you look at all the first round picks that you could make and how I'd say over half don't pan out. It's like if I can give up a first round pick and go get Myles Garrett, or I can give a first round pick and go get Max Crosby, as long as I think that one of those two guys is going to fit my organization and do the things that I want, if I really think the Lions are going to pull the trigger on that. Like, I don't know how the Lions continue on this season unless they come out and just show like, hey, yeah, we miss Hutch, but we have, some guys on the line that are still getting after it and they don't need it. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Lions try to go get somebody to just say, no, this is our year. Nothing's going to stop us. That's my, minor prediction going into week 7.
I mean, it's a great thought. I mean, and again, I'm not super familiar with the inner workings of their like front office and all that other stuff, but like, yeah, I mean, if this is the year that you're like, and I believe it, right? Like they've got the talent, it's there, it's up for grabs for sure. If they really wanted to sell out and do that, they could, and they should.
Speaking of like teams that as the season goes on, they weren't who you thought they were at the beginning. I think that if at the week 1 I had said, hey, Eagles are playing the Giants, everyone's like, give me the Eagles by a million. Now on week 7, I'm like, ugh. And Neighbors is playing. I'm like, dude, as much as I hated on the Giants, dude, the Eagles look bad. They're just not a good football team.
Dude, I mean, outside the Commanders, this is like typical NFC East, dude. Like they can't, no one can ever be consistently good like in back-to-back years. Like it's just, it always happens like this. And you're right. Like for the Eagles to come, I already said it, for them to come out of their bye at home, play a JV team in the Browns, and look pedestrian, yeesh. With all their weapons back, like they got Devontae Smith and AJ Brown back the same day, like yeesh. Like watch out. That's all I'm saying. Like watch out. This is a trap game for them for sure.
The Eagles, I know we already said it once episodes ago. This goes back to head coach. Like I look at Sirianni, it's like him like looking up the crowd holding his ear. I'm just like, dude, like Belichick never did that. And you go through like these like winning coaches that you sit back Super Bowl winning coaches, and it's like name the guys that turn around and like flaunt at their own fans. It's like
Their own fans.
it's like it doesn't happen. I could never see Bill Walsh just going to the sideline and be like, "Oh, you didn't think the West Coast like you know what shuts people up? Winning."
Yeah.
Like winning football games. And with an offense that has just not performed really since the Super Bowl, I sit back and I go, no one Sirianni has taken zero, credit for being like, hey, this is on me. I gotta get this better. It's it's this like battle of like, no, we won. Who cares? Like, shut up, Philly. Like, and I just sit back and I'm like, dude, you're digging your own grave in Philly.
His days are numbered for sure.
And they don't make the playoffs this year. Sirianni's done. Head coaches changes because this is where the bigger rumors fly in. So Raiders Rams. I don't know. Do you see the thing about Brady today?
Like the rules and restrictions he's been put on. What was it?
So this is just a rumor. Nothing's confirmed, but according to multiple sources, Brady's first goal as the minority owner is he wants Belichick to be the head coach of the Raiders, which I don't hate at all. I don't hate at all. Like, and it's not from like I don't like Antonio Pierce, but it sort of makes sense though. It's like, well, why'd you trade Devontae Adams? It's like we're going to go into a total rebuild. Like we're going to start this from scratch, and they don't have a quarterback. They don't have one. They have Max Crosby on defense and Christian Wilkins, which Wilkins is hurt. Crosby, he had said in the past that if Adams goes, it needs to be a package deal because I want to go. If he leaves, I wouldn't be shocked to see them try to go get a second or first round pick for Crosby and see what happens. I'm on the verge of saying like the Raiders are just like a loss or two away from being like, yo, scrap this season. We'll figure it out.
They don't have anybody. Now they don't even have a wide receiver. They don't have a running back. They don't have a quarterback. They've got one defensive player.
And Brock Bowers.
They got nothing. Nothing.
Yeah. And I don't know what
they got a kick-ass stadium. I'll give them that.
Dude, God, that stadium's awesome. I took a tour of that stadium, dude. They took us up in the upper deck, and I was sitting in the front row, and Holly was like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "If I was sitting right here for the Super Bowl, like these are amazing seats for upper deck. Like the field's like it was close. Like the upper deck, it's so well designed. Like if you go to the Titans Stadium, you were like, dude, are those even players down there? I can't even see the numbers. Like, if you don't know who the people are, you ain't gonna find out during the game because you can't see anything from the upper deck of Titans Stadium. You might as well just go stay home, watch it on TV. Raiders Stadium's beautiful. Now the other stadium's great, SoFi. I haven't been, but I've flown over the top of it. Raiders Rams. Raiders is 2-4. The Rams are 1-4. Things I didn't think I was going to like. They're just bad football teams. Now the Rams more because they're just hurt offensively.
Yeah, remember we were talking about the Rams giving the Niners like a run for their money for the NFC West. There, we all did. I think we all like. I don't know if you picked them to win. I think we all.
I picked them to win the NFC West. You guys had the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, I remember saying like this was a toss up. Like I could see either way it going either way, and yeah, the Rams have just been a disappointment on. I do think they're getting Cup back, which that's a huge. Obviously, he's a fantastic player, but just from like a mental boost of just like we're getting talent back on the field for Stafford primarily, like because he loves him. I know the record is bad, but like you can't pick the Raiders to beat anybody at this point. They got nothing. Like there is no threat on that team outside of Max Crosby, and he's not scoring points for them.
So. Not routinely, anyhow. Yeah, they're a bad football team. They need a wholesale change in that organization. Who knows what Brady does? Just because you come as I sit back and say that just because being an owner doesn't make you great. There's so many things that I think if Brady sat down and did his due diligence, Brady has shown that if he works at it, Brady's really good at being as close to perfect as you can be when it comes to football. He'll do far better than Jerry Jones. It's just a matter of what type of rope do they give, Brady to make decisions, which I sort of sit back and that's what I see with the whole relationship. It's like, yeah, he bought in to say, no, you're going to listen to me. Like, I have a stake in this team. Do you want to win a Super Bowl or not? Because right now you're not winning. You're not beating Mahomes. I'm the guy that beat Mahomes in a Super Bowl with a new team in the Bucks. It's like, for him, if I was, Mark Davis, it's like, here's the keys, dog. Go. Make it what it is, because it's your money on the line too.
Another note on the Rams. You know who their one win is against? The Niners. They beat the Niners. So this is like where it's like the Rams have talent. Like they're decimated from injury. But if you look at like their schedule, they lost to the Lions. Again, really good football team. They got blown out by the Cardinals. And that was one of those where I was like, ooh, what was that? Like that was a freak weird week. And I'm not gonna, but then they came back and beat the Niners. Remember, they came back and beat them. But then they lost to the Bears, which again, that doesn't look great, but it's like they've already been riddled by injury. The NFC North is a powerhouse division. And then they lost to the Packers. So like 3 of their 4 losses are to the NFC North, which is the best division in football. So just like how we were talking about, like some undefeated teams aren't the same as others. Like this is one of those where it's like, yeah, they're a 1-4 team, but like this is not the Carolina Panthers out there. You know what I mean? Like they can play football still. So there's no chance that the Raiders should even be close in this game.
Speaking of the Panthers, that's the next game. Panthers Commanders, which you were saying the Bills initially coming out when the spread first opened were the largest favorite. Finally, Vegas was like, nah, Panthers defense is terrible. Jaden Daniels going to light them up. Washington's minus 9.5 right now on Carolina, which I don't see Carolina winning the game, but Carolina's defense, Jaden Daniels may throw for 500 yards if they let him.
Well, the only thing about that line is the Washington defense sucks too.
You ain't wrong.
Like, and I don't think, again, there's no chance that I'm giving Carolina the game here, but 9.5 in an NFL game is just a lot. There's just a reason that it happens all the time. Don't get me wrong. Like teams get beat by more than 10 all the damn time, but there's just a reason that the lines don't ever get that large, is because it doesn't happen a lot from the line standpoint. And again, if you had this amazing super stout defense, sure, because then you're stopping them and scoring all those points. But like anytime you get into these shootout type of games, like 10 points is just a lot.
Yeah. Next game that many are saying is the game of the week. Chiefs Niners. Niners are -2 in the game, which I sort of sit back and I will give it. The Chiefs are only a handful of plays away from being like 1-4. Like the Chiefs have skated by sometimes on the backs of the referees that have been throwing some questionable flags or not throwing a flag here and there. That thing that pops out was hilarious.
Yeah, that I saw a one that was related to that, and again, it's because of this whole game. It was just like, let's play a drinking game of like anytime the refs just miss a blatant hold on Joey Bosa, you got to take a drink. They're like, I guarantee none of us are standing by halftime because you know it's happening.
I'm just glad it's not the Sunday night game. That way I don't have to listen to Chris Collinsworth just be like, Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, did you see that incompletion? It was so smart.
Oh, marry me.
I did see a stat, though, that said when Mahomes is a road dog, he is 11-1-1. So,
Chiefs.
If you want to pencil in to make a bet on the Chiefs there on this weekend, because I mean, let's like you said, just like the Chiefs are what could as easily be 1-4. for whatever reason right now, the NFC West is just not performing. They are on all facets of the game just not doing well. So the Niners got them at home, which should be good, but apparently Mahomes is just a dog on the road. So good luck, I guess. It should be a good game. I agree it will be a good game, but I'm still with the NFC North up there.
San Francisco's defense isn't as good as it was last year. And the Chiefs, you sit back and talk about Mahomes, which I'm not taking anything away from that. Chiefs still have Spag. And as long as Spag's controlling that defense, they'll be fine. They'll get after Purdy. They will create situations which Purdy has not handled well this year. And especially now that they don't have Christian McCaffrey, I just sort of sit back and I'm like, dude, good luck. You can make that column for Mahomes 12-1-1. That's what's going to happen.
I was gonna say, as far as Purdy goes, dude, that the guy's. I think he's playing great. I think he's just like sneakily, like he's not getting. He can't escape this whole like. Everybody just loves to call him this game manager, but like if you just look around the league as far as like and bell curved, the level of play of quarterback, dude, he's on the right side of that bell curve. Like Purdy is sneakily like under the radar, not getting a lot of like media attention for like the numbers he's putting up, but he's playing really well in my opinion.
I'm trying to figure out a quarterback that I would compare him to in terms of NFL history that was a good quarterback. Because for me, do I agree with what you said? Yes. The difference is that I don't see Purdy having this amazing, almost like the Mel Kiper attributes like Mahomes and anybody else has, where it's just Purdy hasn't proven to me at least that when the game's on the line, he's someone that I want to have the ball. Now, I can sit back and I'll say I'd rather him have the ball than Will Levis and a bunch of other guys in the league, but it's not one.
You know who I compare him to from like I feel like the way people look at him is because I used to look at him this way, and you don't even have to go that far back in history. He's still technically active. Joe Flacco. Like, Joe Flacco, to me, he was never elite, right? He was like never this elite quarterback. He was never the guy that's like, dude, Joe Flacco took over that game and just won it. Like, that's not Purdy, but like, that's fine. Not a lot of guys can do that. But like at the end of the day, and I think it was harder to see Flacco in that light because he was surrounded by so many really good quarterbacks. We got to grow up in probably one of the greatest like quarterback eras of all time. And now that the quarterback play has fallen off so drastically, I know we've talked about it. All of a sudden, Flacco's like, "Hey, dude, that guy's pretty dang good." And it's like, did he just like we overlook him because he was just surrounded by so many good players? Like, I think Purdy, for whatever reason, gets like thrown into this like, oh, he's not elite. He's never going to be this like game dominator. And I agree, he's not elite. He's not going to be that game dominator. But like you watch the game and he's the opposite of Trevor Lawrence to me, where it's like Trevor Lawrence clearly has talent, but just misses so many little things that don't have to be significant, but just add up over the course of a game. That's just like, yeah, you didn't convert a single third down because you were sailing everybody. No wonder you didn't score any points, right? Like all of a sudden you just get to the end of the game and you're like, oh shit, how do we lose? But like Purdy's the opposite of that. Like he doesn't make these like fantastic plays, but just does what he needs to do to like get the team down the field and score points. And all of a sudden it's like, man, the Niners are good, but like you didn't feel like they were that good. Like what happened? It's just like because Purdy was making the plays he needed to make, or he scrambled at the perfect time when he needed to scramble. Like his athleticism is super undervalued, in my opinion.
Flacco's a great pull. Perfect. Sunday night, Jets Steelers. You get Aaron Rodgers has now no more excuses because you got Devontae Adams. He got his wish. This relationship will hinge not between him and Adams. It's how does Garrett Wilson continue to be involved in the offense? Because Adams going to get his. But Wilson, dude, is a dog. Like that dude balled out the last few weeks. Like the Jets were in games and won games because of how well Wilson played. I'm excited for Adams because Lazard can't catch. Mike Williams was a no-show. Like, my man hasn't shown up once for as much as he was with the Chargers. And you were like, oh, dude, him and Keenan Allen, like, these are two awesome guys. How are they going to manage? And it's like, now I know why San Diego let him go. It's just like, my man has been an absolute no-show. The Jets have pieces. They have a team. I I feel bad for Salah because it's like, why can't y'all go get him before y'all fire me?
That was my biggest thing. It's like, how do you think firing your defensive minded head coach is going to help your offensive problems? Like, that was what it came down to. You know what I mean? Like, they were missed field goals away from beating the Broncos. Like that was, and that was just, and it's not like the defense let them down. The Broncos scored 10 points. You know, it's just like, dude, you got kickers missing things. You can't run the ball. Up until last week, Breece Hall has not been able to run the ball all season. Last week, they did a really good job, and they looked great. The Jets looked like a really good team. You know,
And just came up short against the Bills.
yeah, which is,
And the
again,
Bills have been playing
is
good.
a really good team. Yeah, I mean, the Jets defensively have definitely regressed from what we expect, but they're still decent. Like, they're still a good team. Um, and you know, it's one of those, like, usually good offenses put more pressure on other offenses, which help your defense strive, right? Because you kind of know if you can score a ton of points, you almost force the other team into having to throw the ball a lot, right? Like, you kind of start to know what the other team's game plan is going to be based on, you know, one side helps feed the other. It's not just a give and take type of thing. So if all of a sudden the Jets come out and start putting up a ton of points on offense, their defense is probably going to start looking better just on the fact that they're going to know what the other team is doing.
On one side, you've got Adams playing now for the Jets. On the other side, my question to you is, should Russell Wilson be starting this game?
No,
Like,
no,
yeah,
no.
I don't get this. I don't understand why this has become a thing. Like, I would totally understand if the Steelers were not sitting here at 4-2. If they were 2-4, then absolutely start Wilson. But if they start him in this game, I'm a little. It's not that Fields has played amazing, but he hasn't played bad enough to lose the job, in my
No,
opinion.
not at all. And I was giving Mike Tomlin like this like veteran move credit at the beginning of the season, going like, he's going to start Fields because if Fields doesn't pan out, it's an easy one move, like we go to Russ and we're done with it. But if Fields does play well, then you get a free look at Fields and you just get to keep rolling with him until he stops playing well. And then you go to Russ and it's like one move. Because now you start Russ, dude, and Russ comes out and it's just like the last 3 years of Russ and he's just not good. Then what do? Then you switch back to Fields. I mean, you're sabotaging your own team there. And again, like you said, like, it doesn't have to look pretty if it's working. The Steelers haven't looked pretty for the last 3 years, but they keep making the playoffs, right? So like, what do you gain here by swapping to Russ? You're not getting prime Russ. It's not happening. That ship has sailed and is over the horizon and gone. So I don't know why they're making the switch, and it's a very inopportune time for them as well.
Yeah. It'll be a great Sunday night game. And then on Monday, we have two games. We get Ravens Bucks first, which for me, this is not so much about the Ravens. It's what Bucks team am I going to see? Am I going to see the one that came out and beat the Lions? Or am I going to see the one that came out and got throttled by the Broncos? Like, I don't know. The Bucks have every reason to be in full command of the NFC South, but it's just like, I don't know who they are as a team.
I would say the exact same thing with the Ravens. Like, I think this is just going to be an absolute shootout. So hopefully it's a great game. But is this going to be the Ravens that come out and, you know, I don't have their schedule pulled up, but like we've seen the Ravens are literally like Super Bowl contender type team. We've seen it happen. But then you lose to the Raiders. Like, I mean, we just talked about how bad the Raiders are, right? So it's like the Ravens need to. They're that team that could get up on anybody, but they have trouble putting the foot on the throat. The Bucks defense is no good at all. So the Ravens should be able to put up 100 points. That being said, the Bucks offense is pretty darn good, and the Ravens defense is not very good against the pass. So this game could be 100-99 by the end of the night.
I hope so. That'd
Go
be amazing.
go
I mean, I still.
go ahead. I was just gonna say, going back to the Jets real fast with Garrett Wilson, because you kind of talked about it. I hope that they're able to primarily able to accept. Maybe he thinks he deserves to be the number one, and probably at this point, with Adams and his career being a little older and maybe gimped, probably should be the number one. But he's probably not gonna be the number one as far as target share goes, just because of the relationship with Rodgers and Adams. However, and this is from like a fantasy standpoint, I used to love. I made a living off of picking up really good wide receiver twos, primarily because everybody focuses on the number one and the twos just clean up. Look at Godwin right now. Like, that's a perfect example. Mike Evans is the number one in that offense for sure. Godwin is like the number one wide receiver in fantasy right now because you focus on Evans and Godwin's cleaning up. A couple years ago, remember when the Raiders were real good with Derek Carr? There was that one season. Who'd they have?
Hunter Renfrow.
Well, he was a good slot, but it was Cooper, who everybody focused on because it was Cooper, and Michael Crabtree. Crabtree cleaned up because Crabtree was an amazing talent. Now, he couldn't stay on the field because he was just fighting everybody all the damn time. But he was killing it when he was on the field because it was like you had to focus on Cooper because he's going to torch you. And if you didn't, I mean, Crabtree was right there. So, like, Garrett Wilson has a really good opportunity to, like, step into that role and let everybody just focus on Devontae because they know the relationship there between Rodgers and Devontae. And I mean, like, good luck leaving Garrett Wilson one-on-one, right? And then if he starts torching you, like, you can't not, you can't leave Devontae by himself. That's your best option at this point because Devontae's maybe just a little bit older. But I mean, Devontae's going to torch you over the top every single time. Like that, they have a really good opportunity there, and I just hope they don't squander it based on like, oh, I want to be the number one guy kind of thing.
It's been a hot minute, but I'm glad that you made me remember Crabtree and Akil Talib fighting one another during the
Ripping
games.
chains off in the middle, dude. I'm pretty sure that cost me a game one time because I had Crab. Yeah.
Ugh. And then the final Monday night game, which I feel like is going to be over, even though it starts later, just because of how much the Chargers run the football. Chargers Cardinals, which I should be excited about watching like Herbert, but it's for as much as I sat back and was like, dude, Herbert's king. It's like, talk about a dude that for the past few years, it's like he was all over, and it's like, dude, it feels like he's a bottom tier quarterback in the league right now.
He kind of is. And I think that's kind of what you're feeling is like, it's hard to accept this new identity Chargers. Like the Chargers have made it clear that they're going to come out and run the football and like that's what they're going to do. But we haven't seen the Chargers do that since like LT. So it feels so different. And like with someone like Herbert, and you're so used to Herbert just slinging it around the field to Williams and Keenan Allen, like, and they don't have that anymore. It's hard to get a grasp on it, and you don't really know how to feel about the Chargers yet, especially because they had an early bye, so we're further in the season, but we've only seen them as a few less times. Because I'm with you, like it should be the Chargers' game to lose, but you don't know because I can't get a good grasp on the Chargers.
Yeah, and then I mean the Cardinals are they have every bit of a reason to sort of stake their claim in the NFC West because no one can win. It's the Cardinals are sitting back, they're 2-3 right now, but you look at their schedule and they lose to Buffalo, they beat the Rams, they lose to Detroit and Washington, but then they beat the Niners. They keep winning their division games. They can't win out of division games, so they'll probably lose to the Chargers. But you just don't. I told this to Pops.
I think MHJ is going to be out with a concussion as well, though. So that's a huge blow to the Cardinals.
I asked this to Pops. If you could go over and redo the NFL draft just in terms of wide receivers, where does MHJ go based upon what you've seen so far this year?
I don't think it changes.
You don't think Neighbors goes higher?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it would, but like, honestly, no. Like, I don't think so. Personally, or like how I actually think it goes out.
Personally, like if you were, the only reason I bring it up is Neighbors has shown, like with Danny Dimes, it's like when he's on the field, you're like, ooh, difference maker. Like it's just clear that that dude's on the field. With the Cardinals, it's like, dude, I don't even see this. I know he had one good game, but that's been it. Like he's not someone that I sit back and I'm just like, dude, I gotta watch the game. Like I sit back and I think about it for the Eagles Giants. As soon as I heard Neighbors was playing, I'm like, dude, Giants have a chance in this game because of one guy playing that position. If you were to sub in Marvin Harrison Jr. right now, I don't feel the same way.
The only reason I say I don't think it changes is I look at it from like the sense of like swap quarterbacks. Put Danny Dimes on the Cardinals. You think MHJ is having a better season? Or put Kyler Murray on the Giants. You think Malik Neighbors is still having the season that he is?
True.
Personally, like I don't. Like and it's not that I don't think Malik Neighbors is having a better season than MHJ. I really do. He is having a better season. Like that's undebatable. The stats say that he is. I just think from like why you drafted him was not to like come out and win the Super Bowl right now. Like I think they're both phenomenal talents. I think it doesn't change though, kind of like where and why they drafted him. And I mean, I think Danny Dimes is a better quarterback than Kyler Murray, which, you know, whatever, call me crazy. I think Danny Dimes is helping Malik Neighbors look like he is. And I think if he had Marvin Harrison Jr., he would be doing the same thing for him.
Can't argue with that. Well, that wraps up the NFL Week 7. You got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Time Paul Chalks. We'll see you next time.